Welcome to Extra Takes, hosted by Northland Church Senior Pastor, Dr. Joshua Laxton. Join us each week as Pastor Josh reveals the rest of the story behind his sermons. We'll discuss how those who follow Christ can live out a biblical vision for the church in our world today.
Well, hello, Northland family and friends. Welcome to another episode of Extra Takes. I am your co-host, Matt Shiles. Pastor Josh is over there doing my signature wave. And we have two very special guests, the Dans, Pastor Dan Elkins and Pastor Dan Young. Welcome.
The Dans.
Glad to be here.
The Dans.
And so glad you guys are here. You've been with us a few times on this podcast, and it's been too long. So welcome back. We're going to have a wonderful conversation. So, Pastor Josh, what are we doing today?
I have no idea. I texted you because obviously Pastor Dan Young, he preached yesterday, and you might can ask him a couple of questions like that. But we're getting ready to start our brand new series this coming week, How to Lose Your Family in 10 Easy Ways. And then we also have something too that we're starting in September. So it'll be in the months of September and October called FamCon. And so I felt like it would just be a really good opportunity for all four of us to have a discussion on family and families, and how we here at Northland, we are definitely an advocate and hopefully a huge support to our families when it comes to their discipleship. And I felt like we could just have a conversation around that.
Right.
And so I asked you to text these guys to see if they were available. And then y'all graciously waited on me for an extra 20 minutes while I was finishing up a meeting. So thanks.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we're going to have a good conversation today. We'll start talking about just kind of get some updates of what's been going on this summer. We'll talk a little bit about this upcoming series, and then, we'll dig into FamCon and some of the things we want to get out of that. And, so we're considering this kind of a preview episode of this series and really FamCon and what that's going to mean, because it is going to be several months and really important to the life of our church. Planning for this began spring of last year, maybe even before that. So we're really excited, and I'm looking forward to this conversation today. So let's just start by, we'll open it up to any of you three. Give us some updates on what's been going on this summer, and maybe your family and ministry.
Sure. Yeah, love to. The highlight of our summer, and I've kind of, poked a little fun of it yesterday, was our kids camp. But it was really, a dynamic experience. We had just over 200 people involved. So there's about 90 volunteers and 120 kids, and great for both. Great for the volunteers who are serving and investing in the life of the kids and seeing Jesus really take shape and form in their lives. And, of course, great for the kids as well, as they have a fun, safe place to be in the summer, 8 hours a day for a whole week, and they get to hear about Jesus. So I would think that the camp was really a huge win for us this summer.
Yeah, so I did pick up a couple days, and I was on lunch duty. That was controlled chaos, I'll tell you that. Mm-hmm. But pickup was so much fun. It's a win and a success when the parents come and get their kids. We would go in the sanctuary and call the kids, and the kids were like, "Oh no, I want to keep going!" They didn't want to leave, So if the parents were a little early, and if they weren't late, they were. It was funny to see those reactions. But I think that was definitely a win.
Yeah, so, Tom Horvath tells a story. He ran into a family in the community at lunch. I know, it was on Friday, and the same thing. And he said, "Now you got to go pick them up today." And his parents said, "Hey, listen, if you'd keep them all summer, we'd be happy to send them because they're having a great time." So
that's so funny.
So your daughters, they didn't want to be picked up?
No, they were home. They were home with my wife, so they didn't participate, but I got to participate.
You got to participate.
And as I was picking up the kids to say, "Hey, Susie, Johnny, your parents were here," they would go, "Oh, we're not ready yet."
Okay.
That happened
numerous
times, so that was always fun.
Gotcha.
Yeah. How about you, Pastor Dan?
Yeah, I've had a boring summer, not a whole lot going on. Just been working here in the office.
We had to reacclimate him to his actually home.
Yeah.
Like the Elkins needed to actually be reintroduced to who Dan was.
For a while, I was just Dan. There's no Dans. I was just Dan.
So, I think that's been the running joke. Most of the church knows that we've had a lot of student involvement this summer, starting with our England mission trip for our high school students the first week of June. I was home for a total of 8 hours before I left for middle school camp. And we had a busload of middle schoolers that went to middle school camp for a week. We came back. We took another, 10 students to a leadership conference here in Orlando, Student Leadership University. Had 40 plus students help with kids camp. That I was helping to make sure everyone was doing what they're supposed to be doing, where they're supposed to be going, and then took a busload of high school kids up to North Georgia for high school camp, and then took another 7-8 students to a leadership conference in Washington, D.C. So, and then I just got back Saturday night from a family vacation / family mission trip to Canada. So, been a whirlwind summer. Definitely haven't counted the number of nights I slept in my house versus the number of nights I slept in either a hotel room or a dorm room or a camp, cabin. But it's been a phenomenal week. We've seen tons of students grow in their faith, give their life to the Lord, called to ministry, called to leadership, Christian leadership experiences. And just our students here at Northland are super excited for what God's been doing in their life and excited to tackle a school year. School starts a week from today here in Orlando and Seminole County, and we're going to be sending out student missionaries to pretty much every middle school, high school in our county. So excited to see what God's going to do this year. So.
Yeah, it was funny. I was following along on Facebook as you were giving updates while you were in England. And I was catching up on your updates, and then before I know it, you're on a bus. I'm like, wait, he's back?
And I'm on my way to camp. So it was great.
Awesome. Well, welcome back. You just got back a couple of days ago.
Yep,
right?
just back a couple of days ago.
Awesome.
So,
how about you, Pastor Josh? Any updates from the Laxton clan?
Everybody's under the same roof. Ellie, she was at a camp all summer long in North Carolina serving. So the first half she was serving as a up-and-coming leader and doing a lot of service-oriented things like cleaning up on cleanup duty, trash duty, all that fun stuff. And then they asked her to stay in July as a counselor. And so she took that as a huge honor. So, and I hate it, what am I going to do? Tell her no? Like I really want her home, and I really do want her home. But so she just got back this past Thursday, and then and just being gone basically all July from Africa, and then just trying to take a breather. I don't know if I did a really good job taking a breather, but now, getting ready for fall. And that's about it.
Yeah, and we're looking forward to this fall. So let's look at that. This is a series called How to Lose Your Family in 10 Easy Ways. I want to throw this out to all of us, just some questions of why this series? Like, why do we need this series?
Well, first and foremost, I will say I don't want to say I got pushback, but I kept on getting all of the questions. Why do you want to do the negative? How to lose your family? Shouldn't you do positive, things? And so it is reverse psychology. Yeah. Now, here's what's interesting. Like, this is really, really what's interesting. Okay, so and these guys would know. So, and you would know too, Matt. But in the kind of the late 80s, 90s, there was this purity culture. Like, true love waits, okay? Sure. But basically from the 1990s until 2020, you had almost 70% of teenagers engage in sexual intercourse. Okay, so they told you don't do something.
Yeah.
Like, so, or they actually told you to do something positive, like true love waits. Like, that's what they tell you, true love waits, and then they went and did the opposite. So they didn't wait for true love. They went from it was crazy. From the early 1990s, it was around 45 to 50% of teenagers engaging in sexual intercourse, and it went up to 70%. Now it's since declined. There's a whole host of reasons for that. But what I'm trying to at least illustrate is that in the 90s and early 2000s, we told them, do this. And they did the opposite. So in some sense, like this reverse psychology is, hey, this is what you're already doing. How about we stop doing this? Mm-hmm. So that's where I'm always going to start out with the negative and then come around to the positive. Because I'm going to say you're already doing this. Because here's the thing. We are, like, as human beings that are broken, that are marred in our sin, we already have the proclivity of doing this. And I just want to name this.
Sure.
Like, you're already doing this, and this is one of the reasons why, if you would just think about it, because you're already doing this might be the reason why you are experiencing what you are in your marriage and family and parenting. So hey, let's identify that as this is really bad, poor behavior. But let's give you then the actual biblical theology of what God actually wants from you. Yeah. So it is almost reverse psychology. Sure. that actually to a degree might work. So that was the whole reason for it. So
you didn't come up with the title based on the movie?
Well, that's where it all came. You know, how to lose a guy in 10 or is it 10 days?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it was so it was based upon that. But because people are like, well, do you really want to focus on the negative? So I had to come up with my reasoning why here, let's start with the negative. So.
Well, I think it's interesting to consider that. Laying out these 10 in the negative, we're not necessarily introducing new ideas to people. Mm-hmm. You were just highlighting what's already there, what's already evident in culture.
Well, and I think, again, this topic is so relevant because families are under attack, right? And parents do sit up at night and wonder if they're doing enough and if they're doing the right thing and if their kids are going to turn out okay. And is their marriage going to last? Are they going to survive? I think there's the reverse psychology, but then there's also like this is practical because there are people thinking, am I losing it? Am I losing my marriage? Am I losing my family? Am I losing my kids?
Yeah.
By what I'm doing already. Is what I'm doing matter? Does it help?
And the reality is there's a lot of messaging and marketing from the world today that is just so anti-Christian. It's against the culture that we live in as Christians and the values and standards that we believe in. It's really more and more difficult today to parent kids and keep them or safeguard them from believing what everyone else is believing.
Yeah. Because
that has become just the norm in the culture. And so it's just so important that we equip our parents so they know the truth and have the resources to then invest in their kids so their kids can live countercultural.
Yeah, so Pastor Josh, what are some of the topics that we're going to be delving into?
Some of the topics that we will be delving into. All right, so the very first one out of the gate, just by the way, is this is going to be a convicting series. I just want to forewarn people, like you're going for everyone. Like everyone will at some point have their toe stepped on. But here's
unmarried, single, kids.
The first one out of the gate is awaken love until it's ready. So it's on Song of Solomon, and so the woman in Song of Solomon says this 3 different times: "Do not awaken love until it's ready." But so if you want to lose your family, awaken love before it's ready. Okay, so that's the if you want to lose your family, awaken love before it's ready. Okay, so and we do that through having sexual intercourse before marriage. And so so think about it. All right, so you're dealing with baby boomers that are out there. What did the baby boomers go through in the 1960s? A thing called Woodstock. And then this was the launch of the sexual revolution, okay? And then you're dealing with millennials who in the 90s and through I mean, like, it's this escalation. Even though we had the true love weights, a purity culture, we weren't really that pure. Okay, so now we're dealing, and so I'm actually going to share what happens when you awaken love before it's ready, based upon what the Bible says. I mean, that's going to be convicting to everybody. So this is part of the where, like, I'm wanting people to realize, lean into the discomfort, that God is never going to shame you or guilt you. That's always going to be Satan that does that. But I want you to see, but this is where I want us to see, is that God's standard is much higher than our standard and much higher than the world's standard. And that the only way we can live up to God's standard is through the power of the Holy Spirit. And so that's where I'm wanting, because I think what has happened in the church world too is that we've tend to, over the last several decades, diminish God's standard to make us feel better about ourselves. That's stupid. Because when we diminish God's standard to make us feel better about ourselves, we actually don't feel better about ourselves. Because we're still going, are we doing enough? We feel like we're failing, But no, let's hold God's standard to what His standard is, and know that the only way we can live up to His standard is through the power of the Spirit of God, right? And He doesn't even expect us to live up to His standard. But in the power of the Spirit, through the power of Jesus' death and resurrection that has made us a new creation, we can pursue that. And so that's what I'm wanting people to see. Like, another one would be, don't read the instruction manual. Okay, so how many people go into a marriage and you don't read the instruction manual on what marriage is? Because there's actually an instruction manual. Like, so if you don't read the instruction manual, here's what tends to happen. Like, I hate reading the instruction manual. I hate it. For my birthday, my mother-in-law got me some kind of ice cream making machine, and I'm telling you, the booklet was like 40 pages long. I'm like, I ain't reading it. I'm like, Joni, can you read this for me?
What's wrong with you? You love ice cream.
I do, but 40 pages? Like, I ain't got time. I ain't got time. Like, so here's the thing. I'm thinking I don't have time. In my life, I don't have a margin, even though I love ice cream. Like, I don't have margin to read it. And so, but think about it. So we're entering into the most important relationship in our life, and we don't even know what instruction manual to read. And then we wonder why. Like, that. So 41% of first-time marriages end in divorce. 41%. Second-time marriages, so if you're on your second marriage, you actually have a 60 to 67% chance of getting a divorce. And then if you're on your third marriage, it's actually a 73, 76% chance. Like, okay, so it's a very high. Like, and so, okay, like, how do you safeguard that? Well, might want to read the instruction manual of the person who actually created it. So that's another example. Another one is drift into coexistence. Okay, so how many times, and this is what we see with empty nesters, is that what you have done is by the time you have all of your kids basically graduate high school, graduate college, and even though now it's usually longer, for your kids to actually get out of the nest. But once you get out of the nest, there's actually a thing called an empty nest syndrome, where you don't even know who your spouse is anymore, and you have drifted into coexistence, and therefore you have drifted away from one another. So I'm
going to pause there, because I want to ask you guys, because you guys are a bit entering, all three of you actually, into that stage. So how have you guarded against that? Like, what are some things that you're actively doing? Because that's certainly something that, I have daughters that are 7 and 5, and I have some time, but I know how quick it goes. So what's some wisdom and insight that you can give me into how you're pushing against that one, drifting into coexistence?
Well, I think, and I'm not by any means a role model in this. It's something that I haven't always done the best job at. But, I think you've got to make time for just you and your spouse, and that could be date nights. That could be just having a weekly check-in time where you actually just, the two of you, just without kids around, just talk and reconnect. I think there needs to be seasons, and we've thankfully, most of our 21 years of marriage, we've had a week, a year or two where we go away, just the two of us, and reconnect and talk about dreams and where we want to go in the future. And, we used to do that a lot more when we were young, newlyweds, and the kids were little. Where do we want to live one day? What kind of house do we want to have? But I think just reconnecting on that way is super important, because everyone's busy. Everyone's got a lot of things going on. I don't know if that's the perfect way to battle that syndrome, but we just really kind of focus on just our time, even in the busyness of life.
Sure.
Yeah, it's a great question, Matt. It kind of hits home for me just in the stage of life I'm at, and that's what you're, while we're talking about it. Before we jumped on, I let you know I didn't tell you yet. My daughter just purchased her first condo this weekend, so she signed papers on it this weekend. So, as she's engaged and getting ready to get married and be moving out, that'll be a big adjustment for my house.
Yeah.
And then today, my youngest son, who's 18, is traveling up to the University of Florida as he's moving in to set up his new home there as he begins his studies. So yeah, we have 3 kids. My son Tyler, also in college and working on his career path, but we're getting close, and it's something that we think about often. Like, wow, it's not going to be long before we're empty nesters, and so we're learning that too. What do we have to put in place? What guardrails do we need to have to make sure we, Jennifer and I, my wife Jen and I, that we don't drift into coexistence.
Yeah.
I'm fortunate that my wife, as many of us, we get to work together, to do ministry together. We do get to spend a lot of time together, and I think having projects like camp and things that we work together really helps us to stay actively engaged with one another. But it goes beyond that too in the ministry and being very intentional on date nights and not just Dan, you said something in a extra takes we did several months ago that when we leave work and we go home, we're not done for the day. We're just changing jobs.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that stuck with me. It was really stand out to me. And, when we leave this place, when we leave our offices during the day, we're going home not to just to shut off, but to really be intentional and engage with our spouse.
Yeah. Yeah, well said. It's something that we think about often because we certainly hear about the stories of it can certainly be easy to focus, and one of these is even center parenting around the world of your child, but focus so much on the kid that you become strangers. So it's your advice, Pastor Dan, seems so foundational and simple, but nothing's new under the sun, right? Spend time together, carve out time. It doesn't have to be these mind-blowing ideas or trips, just carve out time to spend with each other.
Yeah. Well, again, our families are under attack. Again, the enemy does not want our families to succeed. They don't want our kids to grow up in the faith, and we need to be aware of that. There's a spiritual battle going on, for our families, and so how are we going to combat that? I mean, yes, we need to know the Word. We need to have a good biblical worldview. But it's not just head knowledge, it's actually practically living that out. And I think that's what one of the big points of this series is try to give you some practical things to avoid or look out for, or, ways to protect your family, your marriage, your kids.
Right. Absolutely.
So any other points that you want to highlight? Any
I've toyed around with the idea of because they're pretty much set in stone. So I'm toying with the idea of letting people know these are the weeks. This is what you're doing, so that people are aware and man, I need to be there for that week. I think you need to be there for all of the weeks, but nevertheless, live without guardrails. Hey, criticize your mate. Bring baggage into the relationship. Oh my gosh. One of the things, is where I'm really, really looking forward to, because you'll hear a little bit more about me and my story and Joni's story, but she comes from a New York Italian family. I come from a southern redneck, rural family, and it was like the Clampetts and the Mafia got together and decided to have a wedding. And I'm telling you, that was some baggage, man, some baggage, early on. So those are things I really, and we're not even aware of it. But this idea of leave and cleave is you better leave your junk in your family and not bring it with your new family.
We're not even aware of it.
And we're not even aware of it. And so those are things that we're not even thinking of, that the Bible actually tells us that we need to be thinking of. So those are things that I really am looking forward to, about the series. That I really do think that the shelf life is a pretty long shelf life. Because I actually did this series now, editing it and making it current, because it was it's 8 years ago that I did this series, and I was going through some of the notes. I'm like, dadgum, the Spirit of God, is all over, I wouldn't change it, I wouldn't, and I'm like, see, this shows this shows the shelf life of the Scriptures.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's where I'm like, I love the content. I pray that it will be transformational. I believe it will be transformational. And then that's the other reason why we wanted to also not tack on, but actually have a supplemental time called FamCon that actually, when I say is correlated to this series, that actually even gives people, families, even more handles to help. And this is almost like even a pilot for us to see, how do you really do family discipleship well in the 21st century?
Yeah, so let's talk about that. So FamCon is Family Conference, and this starts September 7th through October 26th. So I believe every weekend in September and October, it's on Sunday nights, 4:30 to 7, already up on the website. You can register. So who wants to talk a little bit more about kind of what's going to be happening, and then we'll dig a little bit more into what we hope to happen.
Well, I think the first thing that's just catchy is just the title, right? This generation has gotten into these Comic-Cons, and if we can have people be taking off work and spending time in costumes about anime characters and stuff, can we not spend a few hours talking about families and protecting our families? So I love the name. It's a catchy name, but again, what is it really for? It's just, we really want to just give parents and students and kids some tools to kind of help them be a better family. What are some things that are really going to help you connect more together as husbands and wives, as moms and dads, as kids and parents? And what are some things that are going to really help you to, fight this spiritual battle that we've been talking about?
Yeah, and I love it because, the intention of those nights are going to be that the families will come together. We'll have a meal together in the beginning, go into the main auditorium or main sanctuary, have a time of worship, some instruction, and break out into age-appropriate groups. So the content will be the same, but it'll be written in a way that is applicable for each age group. So, for instance, if we're talking about not to criticize your mate or to have healthy relationships at home, we're going to talk to our kids about not being critical at home, how to encourage, how to love one another, how a family will operate in those regards. And same as our students, Dan will be taking them over and tackling the same content. This way, families not only on Sunday on Pastor Josh's message will get it, but they'll be able to then come together, hear it age appropriate on a Sunday night, and then have those conversations through the week. And, I believe that the biggest thing that can happen in family discipleship is that families have those conversations during the week. It's sitting around the dinner table talking about God's word. And if the church can be a resource or a catalyst to help those conversations get started, it's only going to strengthen the family unit.
Yeah. It's awesome.
We know it's a big ask, right? It's a big ask. To say, hey, will you come back for a couple hours, on a Sunday night? And we want to make sure that if families are willing to make the sacrifice to be here, that it's not just good information, but it's actually transformative in their relationships. And so, like Dan said, we'll have, topics about our roles in our families and how God designed us to be, how we can grow, how we can develop more of our faith at home. We're going to talk about technology. We're going to talk about communication. These are practical things that can really make a huge difference in the life of your family. And I want to encourage, again, this is for families of all shapes and sizes. Yeah. All different parents, parents, step parents, kids, everyone is young kids, older kids, because I think one of the things I learned when my kids were younger was that you can't wait until problems exist to figure out how to fix the problems. It's so
too
much
late at that point,
you need to, you need to start early. So if you've got a preschooler, I know you don't want to be thinking about how are we going to handle like dating and high school, but don't wait until they get to high school to be having those thoughts and conversations. Like,
Right.
it's like, what age will our kids get a cell phone and what barriers will we have? Don't wait until they're 13 to figure that out. Figure it out when they're 5 and 7.
Yeah.
That way
Because that's where our culture is giving them the smartphone right now. 7.
Yeah.
Well, hang on.
Because if we wait till when we think, it's probably gonna be too late.
Yeah. So to Dan's point, it's going to be really practical.
Okay.
It's going to take the theological parts of what we're doing in the series and really trying to get them to kind of easy shelf level to grab and to really do some things, and then to even have some time, like because I would say, like, even on the weekend, what I've seen, we have age appropriate ministries, right? So elementary school and then even our middle school, many of them we have age appropriate context, which we're for. We do believe that we need to contextualize God's truth to age appropriate levels, and I know that a lot of times what I'm doing is not thinking of a 6th grader, not thinking of a 2nd grader, but this is a way for us to have the entire family in the room and focus specifically on the family, which is, again, part of this idea of FamCon, of going, hey, what does family discipleship in the church look like today? And have a time of 20, 30 minutes of worship so that kids can see their parents worshiping, parents can see their kids worshiping, and, give like a quick little, 5, 10 minute kind of just inspiration for the family. But then, yes, to have them break off into more, kind of specific stages, seasons of life type of thing for both the kids and the parents. And we might even have one where it's the combined, where, hey, if you're struggling to talk to your teenagers, which I get it. And we're hopefully put you in a safe environment, help you communicate. And how can you communicate better? So that's what I'm really looking forward to, is just the hands-on approach to arm families. Again, one of the things that I'm really trying to stress when I talk to people or even train, like what we did over in Africa, and I even said this for our emotions, like, this isn't a one and done thing. The Christian life is a life of, when you think about discipleship, but what is the root element of discipleship? Discipline. And so if you do not discipline yourself and train yourself for godliness, you will never pursue godliness. And so what we're wanting to do is take the first step into how do we help our people understand discipleship and thus discipline in this regard.
Is this something that we can kind of pop in and pop out depending on the topic, or do you want us to engage every week?
Well, I'm going to answer first, but I'm going to let, because the Dans, they've been really the hands-on creating this, kind of content and stuff like that. So we've just kind of, sometimes this is how it works. Like, I throw out a potential idea, and we were at the executive retreat when I said, and I just don't want to say you need to do this. I mean, I throw out the idea, and if we think that it's a good idea, because I always tell people it's okay to shoot the clay or shoot the skeets if you've ever gone clay shooting or skeet shooting. Like, so ideas are like clay pigeons or skeets. Like, it's okay to shoot them down. But anyways, these guys are very gracious.
Don't shoot the skeet shooter.
Exactly. Don't shoot the skeet messenger. Just shoot the skeet. Yeah. Shoot the idea.
That's
all right.
Illustration from Tennessee.
There you go.
So should we pop in and pop out, or should we really engage throughout?
It's a great question, Matt, and certainly if that's your best that you can give, to pop in and pop out, then do that. Don't miss it if that's the best you can do. But I think yesterday I had this weekend, and thank you, Pastor Josh, for the opportunity to teach this weekend. But my first point was to go beyond the minimum. I mean, we're talking about the most important thing in most people's worlds, and it's their family. So go beyond the minimum. Yeah. If it's a topic, I was thinking as Pastor Josh was saying, awaken love before it's ready. A lot of people say, well, I'm already married, so that doesn't apply to me, right? So I don't need to be there. Well, there's a lot of other ways to awaken things in our lives outside of our marriage, right? There's cell phones, there's devices, there's things that we need not to be looking at. There's ways that other things we awaken in our life. So I want to, as a married man, I want to hear that message.
Yeah.
I want to hear you not only because I don't want to awaken love in my marriage. That's right. But I want to make sure I don't awaken anything else in my life. So I would say go beyond the minimum. This is important. This is your family. Yeah. Give your best.
And I think your question is, again, they don't necessarily build on each other, but they do. I mean, and we certainly tried to tailor make them in a way that would, but you're not going to feel like if you come the first one, miss the second one, come the third one, you're not going to be sitting there in the third week being like, oh man, what did I miss last week?
Yeah.
But we did tailor make it. You'll see the titles, you'll see the emphasis each night, but our goal was not for you to pick and choose like a menu. Oh yeah, we're willing to work on communication this week, or oh yeah, we don't have a problem with technology in our family. We're good there, so I can skip that one. I'm like, well, you need to probably teach. Let us know. Reach out to us if you have that situation at home. So
sure.
We understand families are busy. There may be some weeks that you just cannot be there because of other commitments and things, but we really tried to design it in a way where it would be super helpful and worth your time to come to as many of them as you possibly can.
Yeah, great answers. Yeah, that's really what I was getting at. Go beyond the minimum, and we all have. I would say we're all short on time.
We'll talk about that.
We will.
We will talk about that.
But we make time.
Yeah.
I mean, you look at our screen time. Like we make time for what we deem is important, right? And what I'm hearing from each of you is that like this is one of the most important things that we could spend time on, right? Mm-hmm. So and it's one of the reasons why we wanted to do this preview show to highlight the importance of how important we think this series and this FamCon is to your family and to our family of believers, and we really want to, as much as possible, prioritize that with whatever that looks like in our busy schedules. We're not looking for a year, 2, 3, 4 year commitment. We're looking for a couple month commitment, and as much as possible. I think every single topic you guys did a good job of describing. Even if you, on the surface, you look at a topic and you think, well, maybe that doesn't apply to me. I think if we are open-handed with it, each of these topics are really going to have the opportunity to transform us individually or our families.
And another thing that I would just add is the more families that are engaged with this, in some sense, the more data we will have going forward. More data is like, so, I mean, obviously we have a lot of like families. We all have families here. And then obviously even other staff and leaders that are part of it, they all have families too that they're speaking into, and we're seeing data and research. Like, I sent all of you all a Health and Human Service download kind of statistics report, and it's, oh my gosh, and it was done in 2024, so just last year, just about the stress and the mental stress that parents actually have these days. So, but with more of our people engaged in FamCon, it gives us more even specific elements of what our own families are going through that we can tailor it for the next time, and go, oh, okay, so we need to think about that next time, so that's where this is also helpful, because it's arming us with the data, the information, the situations that you are going through that we can actually build upon for the next time. And one of the things I'm going to do too throughout the series is I'm going to have fun with polls, of just asking you questions. And I want you, and here's the thing, they will be anonymous, so we won't have your name on them, but I want you to be honest, because we want to know who we are serving, who we are ministering and caring for. And if you don't answer Like,
Sure.
honestly, then yeah, because there is such a thing as they call it the halo effect.
Okay.
When people are doing polls, is you answer what you would love to be, not where you are.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
And so it's called the halo effect, that you think you're more angelic than what you really are. Like, go ahead. You know, it's okay to be honest.
Do you like your polls?
I do like them.
Do you have one for the first week?
Oh, yeah, I got 4 of them.
All right. Give it to us.
So I don't know if we'll be able to do all 4, but we'll at least do a couple of them. All right, so poll number 1 is just say who you are. Are you single, married with kids, married with adult kids, divorced and single, or widowed? Like, we'd love to know. Then 2 is, okay, you feel like your current feelings about the state of your family is 1, flourishing, 2, functioning, 3, we're just fumbling, and then 4, you feel like you're failing, as a family. Another one would be a current status in your marriage. Okay, current status, will you answer, honestly, you're satisfied in your marriage? Like, hey, sure, like we have our, normal, ups and downs, but man, I'm satisfied in my marriage. 2, I'm struggling. We're just not on the same page. Maybe you're not on the same page financially, maybe you're not on the same page communicatively, but you're struggling. And then 3rd, you're suffering. You're just having thoughts about leaving. Where are you? Because here's what we know in a church our size is we got people everywhere.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I was talking to I was actually talking to one this past weekend where they've actually separated and even talked about actually going through divorce, but they held off for this series.
Wow. Well,
So I'm like, okay, no pressure, which I don't have pressure. I give that to Jesus. Jesus saved their marriage. Don't look to me to save your marriage. But parenting, are you winging it according to the gospel? Because that's what I'm doing. I'm like, I know what the gospel is. I'm trying to because the Bible doesn't tell us when should we give our children a cell phone or how should we monitor their cell phone. I think we ought to, but how? So we're winging it, okay? Or you wishing you just wishing you knew what you were doing. And then 3rd, you're wailing because you're failing. You're like, I wish. Yeah. So what are you? So those are at least 4 polls that I'm thinking about doing just for the first one, just because, hey, let's get some data as we move into the series and FamCon. Where are people at? So maybe we have 75% of our people that feel like they're flourishing. Okay, all right, well, good. We're going to arm you with some even better tools, and this is going to be awesome. And don't think that's going to be the case, but
Awesome.
those are polls.
So let's do 2 more questions. First question, of these weeks, which of these, and this is for all of you, which of these are you most excited to dig into more? And it could be one of the 10 easy ways, or maybe another topic we're doing for FamCon. But what are you most looking forward to?
so I think for me, Matt, it's not so much which of the 10 topics am I excited about, but we kind of broke it down internally a little bit more into their discipleship and technology.
Yeah.
So I'm just excited for an opportunity to grow and learn with parents together on what are the best avenues that we can disciple kids in our own homes.
Yeah.
We know that as parents, we get roughly 3,000 available hours a year with our kids. It doesn't seem like it, but that's the time that's not accounted for. And so for a church to really come together and learn, what does it look like to use some of those hours in discipleship, that's really what excites me.
Yeah, thanks for that.
The thing that jumps off for me is, again, communication, criticizing, your kids, your mate. Josh, I think you've been very clear, and I think we want to say it again on this podcast. Like, this series is for everyone. Like, if you're a 20-year-old, like, this series, you listen to what you need to know about your future mate, about your family. Get on the early end of learning this stuff. Yeah. And so I think communication, obviously, that involves not just your family, but how you communicate to friends and other relationships that you have. And so, I can just imagine FamilyCon when we talk about communication, just, talking to our kids about how they talk to each other, their siblings, their parents, talking to teenagers about how they communicate with one another, how they can, and then actually having some practical team building type sessions where, again, like you mentioned, like parents talking to their kids in a healthy biblical way. So
awesome.
Yeah. So what I'm sure I probably have a few that I love more than others, but really when it comes down to it, I believe this series will help you run diagnostics, and that's something that I'm really a big fan of. Is if you're struggling in an area, like if you have health issues or something's going on with your body that you don't, well, why do I feel this way or why is this hurting? What do? You go to the doctor and they kind of hook you up to some kind of machine and they start doing little scans to see what's kind of going on, and so they start running diagnostics, and then they offer you a treatment to actually bring healing to your life. And I think a lot of times, and I've said this before, is when it comes to a lot of what we see in churches today, there's a lot of inspiration going on, and we're inspiring, and that's great, and we're telling people about obviously Jesus and how Jesus saves and redeems and delivers, but even more so, Jesus actually brings transformation to every single area of your life. And so this is part of where we need to obviously have inspiration, but we need to kind of come down and actually have, what does it look like to actually experience total holistic transformation? And so this is where running diagnostics of going, hey, these are things that our culture does that actually has seeped into our own life, seeped into the church. And this actually leads to unhealthiness in our marriages and in our families and our parenting. And so therefore, here are biblical treatments. These are actual, when I say truths, principles that if you apply them, that they act as a healing balm for the soul of your marriage, for the soul of parenting. And they're not easy. I mean, so think about it. Like, so there are some times when the doctor, I remember when I got blood work done a couple years ago. He's like, "Man, your cholesterol is high. You know what that means?" I'm like, "No, that means you need to kind of lay off on the fried foods." I'm like, "Well, but I love my fried foods. I love fried chicken tenders. Like grilled chicken tenders are really not fun, but fried ones are, so I mean, but that's a discipline. Like he's telling me your cholesterol is high, and if you don't bring it under control, then it could lead to some pretty bad things. So this is just one way. You got to cut the sweets. You got to cut the fried stuff. You got to cut and so I mean, I heard that, and so again, but he was giving me a diagnostic from my blood work. Yeah. Then he was telling me here's some just treatments before it gets to the point where you're going to pop pills, and again, so if I could change and discipline myself and apply those, then and so, but that's where I feel like in the church world, we've given so much fast food stuff over the last several decades that it really hasn't. And again, we're seeing it.
Spiritual fast food.
Yeah. And this is part of where I want us all to be committed. Like I was talking to the Dans earlier, like what do we, we already do a lot of things as Northland Church to actually support families, but we haven't gone far enough. Yeah. So how do we even take what we're doing, put it in a form where we show people, but then what are the dreams that God's given us to actually even go above and beyond, to walk with families from the cradle all the way through the career? And so because it's not easy. Yeah. The Christian life's not easy. Like it's demanding, it's difficult, and it's quite impossible unless you have the power of the Spirit of God living in you and you've embedded yourself into biblical, Christocentric, Christ-centered ministries and communities. Yeah. And so just because there's the word church in the name, that doesn't mean that they're really operating as a biblical, Christ-centered church. And so that's what I'm looking forward to, running diagnostics and then offering up treatments that if you can discipline yourself to actually apply the treatments, you might find that you have a healthier marriage, you have a healthier parenting style, and you might even raise healthier kids.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
great.
yeah.
I think the few things I'm looking forward to, definitely technology. Anything with technology is something we're always considering. And then the message on community. We've been thinking about that a lot. Just obviously like our individual relationships, but then also our family unit and how that changes even year to year when your kids are that young. So we've been very conscious of that, what that looks like if, long-term relationships with families, but also those that we may be in community relationship with for 1 year with their school, and how can we be intentional with that. So we'll give this last question to all of you. So final thoughts, any final words, and also keying off of what you were just talking about, Pastor Josh, what's next? Like, what are some hopes and dreams that you have in your roles for what's next after this? So that it's not just great series in the fall, but some sort of continuation. So final thoughts, and then what's next? What are some hopes and dreams?
Well, I think, again, for me, looking at, families and discipleship and Josh, Pastor Josh, I loved your illustration. You think about the blood work and the diagnostics and the treatments, and a lot of that could have been avoided if that individual was in the gym, right? So this is the gym. Come these 10 weeks and work out and exercise and get that core in place. But, for me, what's next, I think it would be to continue the conversation, maybe some smaller parenting classes, some smaller community events where just families can get together organically and do some things together, build a relationship. But it's then continuing to go down and say, okay, well, what's the felt need? What are the topics need to be covered? Hearing, and that's where the polls really are helpful, so that we can begin to develop some things together that will help parents continue the conversation and that discipleship at home.
Great.
I think what comes to my mind a little bit differently, I mentioned in the very beginning of this, like how excited I was for what our students were going to be doing as they start off in school. And so, we really, over the last 2 years I've been at Northland, we've really seen God do an incredible work in the lives of students that are here. And so I'm excited for how not just this sermon series and FamilyCon, but how it's going to not just affect our families, but it's going to affect families in neighborhoods and schools and students that come in the future. If our parents will lock in, will listen to this series, will come to FamilyCon, will take these things, it's not going to just change their family. It could potentially change families all over our city, all over our area. And so that's what I'm excited about, seeing how what we've done the last 2 or 3 years at Northland and how we've set up, I believe, a very healthy church and culture, still got ways to go, but how that could impact community and see lives changed all across our city.
I love that.
So a couple things as far as takeaways or what I'm really looking forward to. Number one, just understand God's grace, that the gospel, we needed a Savior. We need a Savior. We will always need a Savior. And so I will continue to say this throughout the series, do not feel ashamed. Do not feel, when I say guilty, and in some sense kind of let that, let those lies kind of lead you to kind of depression. Like, hey, listen, we're all broken. And I want us to kind of know that. But this is kind of where I really focus on the gospel, that in Jesus' death and resurrection, he is making all things new, including how you view your marriage, how you view parenting, how you view your parents. Because again, we're going to hit even on the kids, regardless how old you are. And so that's where I'm just really looking forward to really being, when I say grace-centered, gospel-centered through this and applying the gospel, so that you never, think that it's your performance or your lack thereof. It's really, really trusting, the gospel. There's a couple of takeaways in terms of what I'm hoping comes out of this, and just wrote down just a couple of things. One, I think more date nights. I think that's one of the ways that we could probably support our younger parents, definitely with the kids that need babysitters. And so having more date nights that, hey, come drop off your kids for 2, 3, 4 hours. And again, that's a heavy lift, I know, because we did that not Christmas. Yeah, it's a heavy lift, but this is the thing. Like, how supportive are we going to be? We know that you need day nights. We know that childcare is typically expensive. Inflation, So these 15-year-olds are charging $25 an hour. I get it. No, so. But we want to help there. The second thing is just understanding counseling that we have here at Northland. So we have our counselors and our counseling center under Northland, and then probably towards the end of this year, when I say middle of this year, I say middle, we're already in the middle. Towards the end of this year, around October, November, our Mercy Road counseling that even accepts insurance will be up and running at that time. So you're really making it, because if you need that, and let's put it this way, the Laxtons have used paid counseling for our family. So this is where I'm very much pro counseling for parents, for individuals, and for kids. The third thing that I would also hope that would come out of this is when I say just organic support groups. So if you come to FamCon and let's say you don't know, you're new to Northland, or maybe you've been at Northland, but you've just kind of been really more so attending on the weekends. Hey, this will give you an opportunity to meet other families in your season of life. And who knows, maybe there's an organic support group and life group that would come out of this, okay? And then the last but not least, and I've shared this with people with the Dans and others, at some point, now we're not close to this yet, but at some point actually creating an institute for singleness, marriage, and family, and that this institute would be directed for the whole family, for them to become whole. And so there's a lot of features to that, but it basically becomes the one-stop shop for families to be whole, where you do have the counseling, but you have the tutoring, you have the workshops, you have the community groups, you have sports and ballet, and like anything that the family would ever need. It's the Institute for wholeness, because that's something that this is something that God had put on my heart back in actually 2017 when I was in Louisville, is creating some kind of institute for a 360 family, because families are fragmented, families are broken, but how does the church contribute to the wholeness and the well-being of the family? And this is something that I think would just be a starting point to work our way incrementally, step by step, through a process to actually create an institute for the whole family. So that's what I'm hoping.
Love it. Mm-hmm. I'm ready to sign up.
Okay. And if you're ready to sign up, here's you say, well, what's preventing you from getting there? Money. So, hey, listen, you a billionaire sitting out there, maybe God's really blessed you, and you're like, man, I want to invest in families. Will you share more? Hey, please hit me up, and we love to share. I'd love to share more about that. If you got the money, we got the vision.
You got the vision.
Well, let's put it this way: if God's given you the money, God's given us the vision, because we don't want to leave God out of this. So, because anything good, and this is what I always say, anything good coming from me, and I know coming from these guys, same thing. Anything good coming from us is not from us; it's from Him. So, awesome. Well, thanks, guys, for joining us. Really looking forward to our fall kickoff in this series, How to Lose Your Family in 10 Easy Ways. Also with FamCon.
Yeah.
I know. Well, yeah.
FamCon.
Right.
Got it.
Okay. That's it. FamCon. Yeah. So coming up September 7th, actually through October 26th, every Sunday evening from 4:30 to 7 p.m. And so, hey, we'd love for you to invite people. Love for you to invite people not only to the series, but actually to our FamCon, because it actually is going to, hopefully, Lord willing, be transformational in the lives of our families, our marriages, and our kids. And so blessings on you. We're grateful for you.
Thanks for listening to Extra Takes. Be sure to follow us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts so you won't miss a single episode.